In a world where left is up and right is apparently wrong, do souls make sense of it all, or at least have fun trying? Gear up, friends, for Chicken and the Dawg.
Welcome to another episode of Chicken and the Dawg. I am the dog, and with me, as always, is the guy that will never be a Bulldog fan, the chicken. What up, dog?
100%.
See, I speak only truth.
This is true, as do I.
Yes.
Full-blooded rooster, chicken, foreshadowing.
And also, I didn't do this on the last show. I kind of left you out until the end. But with us is, as always, or most of the time, is our producer, B-Dog. Thanks, B-Dog, for being here.
Rise and shine.
Look, man, we got a lot to talk about on this episode. We're gonna go over. We're gonna do a forecast show on Georgia, the UGA. I just did that. That just happened. But before we do, got a few quick things we want to talk about because we got a lot. There's a lot to talk about Georgia's season, what they're gonna do, what they're not gonna do. Who the heck knows? But they are the SEC coaches, ADs, and the commissioner is all meeting down in Sandustin this week, and it came out that they were talking about going to 9 games versus 8 games. They are still tabling that. There's teams like Texas that wants to go to 9 games because of their Red River rivalry shootout that they have every year is played in Dallas, and so they're trying to gain another home conference game, which I can understand that. Non-conference games, when you play teams like Louisiana Tech School for the Blind, I'm sure they don't draw the biggest crowds. Ticket sales are not near as what they should be, so if you are adding another SEC team, it could bring ticket sales up. Something else that they talked about, they addressed the playing overseas. Yeah, I don't think they should do that. They're not going to right now. I just play at home. Your American football, play at home. It didn't work out last year. I think, who was it last year that played overseas? Was it Notre Dame? Somebody played in Ireland.
Notre Dame and Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Don't do that to the kids. Don't make them have jet lag. Let them play here. One other quick thing that they're talking about, and Chicken, I think you and I talked about this before on the show, which is the potential new playoff position bracket going to 16 teams. The Big Ten and the SEC, which we would all agree. And if there's anybody that's listening to the show and does not agree with this, you are not a college football fan. But the Big Ten and the SEC, they hold the cards. They hold the money when it comes to college football. And look, I know we love college football because it's college football. But college football is ran by money. There's no doubt about that. And both the Big Ten and the SEC are still claiming they want a 4-4-2-2-1, I guess 3, playoff bracket. That means they want 4 guaranteed spots, the Big Ten and the SEC. The Big 12 give them 2. The ACC give them 2. And then you have 1 group of 5. And then there's 3 spots left for whoever. I don't like that at all. I think that I think you should, if they go to 16 teams, pick the best 16 teams, no matter who it is. Just pick the best 16 teams because that's what fans want. They want the best 16 teams. Period.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it does college football as a whole an injustice if you've got guaranteed spots in a playoff because, I mean, I get it. Group of 5, Boise State, right, comes out of nowhere, has a great year, but are you really going to push them that far down the line so that the SEC can get their guaranteed 4th spot or the Big Ten can get their guaranteed 4th spot when those guys would have played hard enough to earn a higher position in the playoffs? Maybe they don't get into the playoffs because you have a year where college football is saturated with strong win-loss records that you push a group of 5 out. I don't like it.
I don't either. And to be honest with you, I think most years, with it being 16 teams, you're going to have 4 SEC schools in there anyway. And you're probably going to have 4 Big Ten schools in there anyway. Especially with all the addition that the SEC did last year. I mean, the Big Ten did last year by bringing in Southern Cal, Oregon. You got some pretty big name schools. I know Southern Cal did not have a great season last year, and I'm sure the Chicken is very upset about that. But
breaks my heart.
Yes, I'm sure it does. But still, I mean, more than likely, you're gonna have 4 teams in there anyway. I just think you're kind of stacking the cards. You're stacking the deck when you do something like that, and I think that's just stupid.
Yeah.
All right, one more thing before we get into Georgia's upcoming season. And over the last couple drops from the show, we've had, and these reels that came on TikTok and YouTube and everything, we had, guys, I would spend probably 2 days just discussing all the comments that have it. So if you've commented on the show, whether it was positive, negative, funny, not funny, we love you. We thank you for the comments. But I do want to go over and address a few of them because I thought they were worth talking about. And one of the comments came from a Mark Lindley. And his comment was, I think the Chicken is confused. Y'all's logo has a rooster and a dog, so he really lays an egg about Texas. Hook 'em.
Welcome to the class, Mark. I don't understand what you mean by confused. A rooster is, in fact, a chicken. A hen is a chicken. So now that we've got that out of the way, you should know this about the chicken. And that is, I don't make ill-advised, uneducated comments. Everything that comes from me, you can depend on as reliable, educated, genius information. So, Mark, welcome to the remedial class. Welcome to your journey to the front of the bus. The chicken loves you.
Spoken like a true chicken or rooster or whatever. Next comment. This is directed to the there seems to be a pattern here. They seem to not like the chicken too much, which I'm sure that really breaks your heart.
I'm torn up.
Yeah. Jack Phillips, old Jackie,
Jack,
came up and said, just know I am your first hater. If you have no haters left, then I must be dead.
Jack. Welcome to class. Another beginning his journey. Let's all support Jack. Jack, I want you to look deep into my eyes, and I want you to know the chicken sees through your pain, and I love you. We will work through this together. You're allowed to hate me all you want. This is still America, and I support you. even though your comments may be so misguided and insane that most people would run for fear of what you may do or say next. I, Jack, will not. I once knew a guy with a dog named Jack. Mangy looking, crazy looking beast. Maybe you two are related. However, I will bring you along my side and turn you not only into a chicken fan, but possibly one that takes the good news of the chicken across this wonderful land of ours to let everyone know that the SEC reigns supreme.
And then Jack's made another comment. Oh, Jack.
Oh, Jackie.
He says, where can I listen to the full podcast? So for everyone that's listening to this, if this is on a TikTok reel or whatever, you can listen to Chicken the Dawg at YouTube, Spotify, in any of your platforms. Major platforms are out there. But if you want to see our beautiful faces, I recommend either YouTube or Spotify. But he says, where can I listen to the full podcast? Need to rage over Chicken's takes at work.
Whatever I can do to help you get through the day, my friend.
Yeah. And then we had a guy named JC17. Can't think of a more unlikely person than the chicken.
That's all?
That's all he said.
That's all. JC. Wow. Where do we begin? I don't understand your comment. There is, as you can see, an essay portion to get into this class. And that essay requirement is your comment. However, your comment needs to be one that I can understand. And I don't understand what it is about your comment that's supposed to make any sense.
Two more real quick. This one is funny. This one, well, actually, all these are funny. But a guy named Joshua.
Good name.
Yeah, I like the name. I don't like his, I think his comment's funny. That's why it made the cut.
Right. Welcome to class.
This is why podcast equipment should be more expensive. Mississippi State might compete in the Big 12, but they're getting waxed in the Big 10 and the ACC. Before I let you go, I just want to make a quick one. I can buy in part of that statement when it comes to the Big 10, especially with the addition of the Fighting Prophylactics and Oregon and some of these other schools. I get some of that comment. If he would have left it at Big 10, I would have said Joshua, maybe so. But then he has to say the ACC. That's where, my friend, you showed your lack of knowledge of college football.
Have you ever been in a store, any type of retail establishment, and you look down at the price tag and it says discount taken at register? That's what we have here. We have a discount taken at register. Like you said, we're in a good spot. I'm tracking with you, Josh, until you get to the ACC, and there's your discount. Turns out it's 90% off. Welcome to class. Welcome to your journey. I will be here with you. Now hold my hand. The ACC has, I don't know, on average, on a year-to-year average, 2 really good teams. And when I say really good, I mean by ACC standards, right? And occasionally they'll have a third, maybe even a fourth where they're looking good. Most of the time, Joshua, the ACC year plays out a lot like, I don't know, NC State did last year, where they come in all hot and bothered and strong at number 24 and end up being less than an afterthought. The ACC is not where you want to stick your flag in this debate. If you had stuck it in the Big Ten and moved on, we'd have been okay. Now, let me retreat just a second to explain something for you. I will add to what I said before to further your enlightenment, Joshua. When I was talking about Mississippi State competing in other conferences, I did you wrong. I did not let you know that I was talking about the Fun Belt, the Pac-2, the Big 12, the Mountain West, the MAC. There's a lot of conferences out there, my friend. Look them up. Expand your horizons and learn to love college football.
Yeah, especially the SEC. Look, I don't know if I want to, that comment, about podcast equipment should be more expensive. I don't know if I want to hold this guy, give him a big hug, tell him that life is going to be okay, or push him down the stairwell. I don't know. More than likely, because of who I am, I will just wrap him up, put my arms around him, tell him life is okay. Maybe even lick his ear, as a good dog does. Who knows?
That's disgusting. That's just, now you've gone way overboard.
Well, that seems to happen. One more quick thing. Lucas says, SEC fans stay delusional. My response to him, keep watching Chicken and the Dawg for more delusional shows.
Well, again, you come with a comment. Okay, we're delusional. Who do you like then?
Yeah.
Who's your conference? What fan base do you fall into? And then let's discuss. Don't just throw out this wild shot. SEC fans are delusional. Okay. Have you ever met someone that pulls for Ohio State? They like to have the word "the" in front of it. Otherwise, it's like it doesn't count.
That's right.
Right? Oregon, Notre Dame, these people are all delusional and they're not in the SEC. So again, my friend Lucas, if you want to start throwing punches, or hands, I believe as the young people call it, come at me with more. You, Lucas, have not earned your seat in this class yet. Try again.
Oh, I hope he does. All right, so let's jump into this Georgia upcoming season. Before we get into the individual games, I'm gonna let you talk about who came in via transfer portal, who came in via out of high school, and just kind of look how the rosters are looking before we start jumping these games.
The interest, well, at first glance, when I was looking at the depth chart, I thought this is kind of interesting what I'm seeing here. But then the more I thought about it, it's just the rich get richer. And when you've got a program like Georgia has right now, they can be very selective over what they want to go after, what they need to go after, and who's coming into this program. So let me just through that lens, let's jump in here together. At first glance, there's not a lot of movement in the quarterback room other than the addition of Ryan Montgomery and Hezekiah Millender, both true freshmen that are now a part of this position group. You got Gunner Stockton is looking like he's going to be your number one guy. Puglisi, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, looks like he's going to be number two. All the way down at the bottom, you've got Coulter Ginn. I don't know that he's ever really going to play a factor there in Athens, but a strong room that you didn't need to go shop in the portal to try and patch holes. At running back, Nate Frazier is coming back. You also had a Josh McCray transfer in from Illinois. That's a good pickup. His stats and Frazier's stats are pretty well in line with one another from what they were able to do this past year. So that looks like it's going to be a good fit. Micah Bell, redshirt sophomore, transferred in from Notre Dame. Not sure what that's going to look like. Not a lot of stats to talk about from him, but still a solid room for the running backs. Wide receivers, the two transfers that you have come in here. This is where it starts to really shout activity in the transfer portal. Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch. Noah Thomas transfers in from Texas A&M. Zachariah Branch, who you saw at the spring game we're pretty impressed by, transferred in from that factory out on the West Coast. Glad to see him give himself a chance in life by leaving that school. And then you've got some guys further down on the depth chart: C.J. Wiley, Taylon Taylor, Tyler Williams, and Landon Rolden as true freshmen. So it'll be interesting to see how those young men develop. But again, not the same type of movement that you see in other schools. Your tight end room stays strong. Two guys coming in, Elias Williams and Ethan Barber, both true freshmen. Oscar Delp is going to lead that position. It looks like Lawson Lucky in there as well. Both of those guys had good years last year. The only thing that I'm seeing in the offensive line, again, incoming depth through high school recruiting. So what they're doing there at Georgia, a lot like what we talked about last week, is they're building this program at the root level. They're taking what they need to have, and I think that they're very specific about that word need, right? They're getting the needs filled through the transfer portal, but they're building through a foundation, which is high school recruits. And you see that in this offensive line. The entire third string depth line is a freshman. 4 of them are true freshmen. 1 in Nair Daniels is a redshirt. The only transfer that you've got coming into the offensive line room is Claire Flynn, coming in from Central Florida. Shifting over to defense, Josh Horton transfers in from the University of Miami on the defensive line. And then you've got some true freshmen, Isaiah Gibson, J.J. Hain, and Elijah Griffin that came in for the Bulldogs there. Elo Madozi, linebacker out of Army, transfers into the Bulldogs. I think that's going to be interesting. He had a pretty good season for Army last year. He played in all 14 games, 20 tackles, 21 hurries, 7 sacks.
I mean, Army had a historical year last year. I mean, they were phenomenal.
Looks like Elo was at least a part of that that's worth commenting about. But again, looking at the depth chart here, 4 incoming true freshmen to just continue to build and solidify that particular defensive group. Defensive back, here's where you see the most movement for Kirby into the portal in one position group this season, and that was with the DBs. Zion Branch, you might recognize the last name, comes with his brother from that West Coast factory from Southern Cal. He comes in over in your DBs. You've got Adrian Maddox transfers in, and he was at UAB at one point, and I can't tell what the other school was. And then Jaden Harris transfers in from the University of Miami to help strengthen that room. You've also got...
We traded Carson Beck for that guy.
We traded Carson for
him.
We did. Looks like it was a good deal. Then you've got, again, 4 true freshmen coming into that room as well. So all in all, it looks like Georgia is going to be good for a while as they continue to build primarily through high school recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, in my opinion, that is Kirby Smart football. That is his strength. His strength is recruiting. Now, most of that is coming through the high school level, but I think you can't deny that he does a pretty dang good job doing it through the portal. The 2 pickups at wide receiver. I mean, if you look at Georgia's seasons last year, I know we already had that show, so I don't want to dive in it too much. But if you look at our season last year and you had to pick one thing that stood out that was a weakness, that was a wide receiver position. We had so many drop balls. I mean, we talked about that a few weeks ago, man. The drop balls, if it wasn't for the drop balls, Carson probably could have had 4,000 yards last year, right? Could have really been a front runner at the Heisman. But all those drop balls, and it caused Georgia's season to not be as sharp as it should have been. But that pickup of Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch, man, I mean, that's huge and much, much, much needed. Like you mentioned that I saw them at the spring game. Zachariah Branch was all over that field, man, and I think that's going to be big. The other thing that you mentioned that I thought is pretty cool, and I don't think you went into it quite as far, so I think it's worth going into, is our tight end room. Georgia, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've always been considered running back university, right? And rightfully so. Georgia has produced some crazy running backs over the years. I mean, I think you would both agree that when we talked about Georgia's strength was, I'm going to run it down your throat football. And there's a reason why that was, because we were running back university. But lately, our tight ends have been off the charts, man. And we picked up 2 new I think one of them is a 5-star tight end that just came in. The other one's a 4-star tight end. We've got Oscar Delp, I think, was a 4-star. Lawson Lucky, I think, was a 5-star. So, I mean, there's a lot of stars in that tight end room. Now, does that mean?
Let me hold you up, because I know you like getting excited with the stars. The information that I'm looking at,
okay,
shows Oscar Delp was a 4-star, which I can attest to that because he was going to be a Gamecock until he left to go with the Chump. Lawson Lucky was a 4-star.
Okay, I was off a star.
Jaden Riddell, a 4-star. Colton Heinrich, a 3-star. And the 2 incoming freshmen, Elias Williams and Ethan Barber, both 4-stars.
Okay.
It just depends on the site, because Elias was a 5-star on most sites.
Yeah, and
I think out of this room, Elias is the true 5-star. He's a freak.
And what I think, and I don't want to go too far down this path, Dawg, you know what my feelings are. I don't like the 5-star. It's totally subjective. A 5-star, for those that are just joining the show, is a 4-star player who, if we could draft into the NFL straight out of high school, we think he might go in the first round. Well, here's the problem with that whole discussion. Number one, you can't draft them straight into the NFL out of high school, so they're not going in any round. They're not even going as a free agent invited to mini camp. So the whole thing is a farce. Then, as B-Dawg just illustrated, it's dependent on where you're looking for the information. A lot of this can be dependent on what camps these young men go to during the summers as to boosting that 4-star to a 5-star. Did they go to the right camp? So it's just way too subjective for me, for my taste. If you're a 4-star player, you're good.
Yeah.
You're real good.
Exactly. And you just listed, I think, 6 different tight ends, and all of them had a 4, I think, with the exception of 1. So Georgia's tight end room is, as I like to say, loaded.
And at the end of the day, when you've got an alumni like Brock Bowers coming out of that tight end room, and you think Brock Bowers, you think Raiders, you think the impact that he made on the Georgia program for the time that he was there, you think a guy who came back to finish his finance degree, you don't think, how many stars was he? Because it doesn't matter anymore.
No, but you do. I mean, but again, when you say tight end, it's hard not to think about a Brock Bowers in modern day, right?
Yes, absolutely.
He's one of the best. And I think having a Brock Bowers at a Georgia has helped recruit in that position for the Bulldogs. And so I think Georgia now has the opportunity to also be known as tight end university. But I said all that to say this. The one thing that we lacked last year, that Carson Beck lacked and Mike Bobo's offense lacked last year, was the use of their tight ends other than blocking. Now, during the spring game, did I see a better use of the tight ends? I did. But that was in the spring game. If Georgia wants to compete in the SEC, for the SEC championship and a playoff spot and potentially a national championship, they're going to have to use all of these stars in this tight end room. They have to.
Yeah, and that's been one of the things too that we've seen with Kirby. You talk about the amount of experience and the history that Georgia has in the running back position, but you've seen a lot more platoon effort with the run game with Georgia. I think that you see that across the board with Georgia. I mean, obviously they want to find a guy at quarterback and settle on that guy. That's my guy, right? But when it comes to who's taking the carries, who's getting targeted at the wideout position, what's going on with the tight end room, you see a lot of that platoon effort. And so whereas your starters might not be the best of the best that ever was, your overall group probably is. And so there's just so much depth here for Georgia that they can continue to attack the way that Kirby likes to attack, which is send them all.
Yeah. I mean, it looks Georgia's roster looks pretty stacked. I think Georgia's biggest problem in 2025, and I hope I'm wrong by saying this. I know I don't normally like to say that I'm wrong. If there's anyone on this show that is humble enough to own when he's wrong, it is me. The chicken will never admit when he's wrong mainly because he's not.
Rewind. I admitted it earlier this show that I was wrong, not in my amazing skills to decipher what's going on with college football, but to not fully inform my students.
Oh, this is true.
So it was an error of omission.
And I guess the only other time would have been when y'all had to play the Fighting Curtises last year. That was not good.
I had nothing to do with that.
Oh, this is true.
You can't lay that at my feet.
No. But the only where I was going with that until I got moved off somewhere with my head was Georgia's biggest problem this year is going to be their offensive coordinator. If they have all the talent in the world, they are loaded on the offensive side of that ball. There should be no reason that Georgia couldn't put 100 points on their opponents every week. They're that loaded. Every time they touch the ball, they should score 7 and not 3, or 6 and not 3. Let's put it that way. But is Mike Bobo? Can we overcome that? Is Mike Bobo going to change? And I don't have a lot of confidence.
He's certainly not shown that historically. I mean, and this goes back to when he was the OC under Mark Richt. People were constantly complaining about the play calls, what he was doing as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. I don't understand it. I know that they're good friends, but to me, that does not a resume make. If you look at his actual resume, I don't see anything. He's not bad. I mean, he accomplishes things, but he's not what I would expect a program like Georgia to be able to attract.
Yeah, if you look at some of the quarterbacks that he's had the privilege of working with, Matthew Stafford and Aaron Murray. Aaron Murray still holds records in the SEC. But, we always talked about, as Georgia fans, how Mark Richt couldn't win the big games. Was it really, in fact, Mike Bobo couldn't make the right play calls to win the big games? I don't know.
I think in a lot of those instances, and there's just too many to dissect them all, but that's a shared responsibility. I mean, there were things where, a timeout could have been called. That falls on the head coach.
Yes.
Play call obviously goes back to the coordinator, but it's a shared responsibility there. The good news is that you've got an outstanding head coach in Kirby Smart, but you got Bobo. So can Kirby create an imbalance, meaning that if a call comes in that Kirby's just like, nah, that is the worst thing I've ever heard, Mike, we are not doing that. Can he manage the whole game as well as he does, but also keep his ear out for those poor decisions that will inevitably come down from the offensive coordinator box?
Yeah, I'm hoping at some point next season or this season, if it's going really bad, that the camera is looking for Kirby Smart on the sidelines during a game and can't find him, because usually that joker's front and center, man. It's not hard to find Kirby on the sideline, right? Whether he's jumping or running or whatever. But if the games are going the way that I hope they're not going to be going, and the offenses, maybe the camera will zoom in and the press box or the box upstairs, and Kirby's up there punching Mike Bobo in the face or firing him. I don't know, but I would be happy either way, unless he can get his stuff together.
Just with a little box and putting his stuff. Mike, security will show you out.
That's right. That would be awesome. And then we can bring back, or we can get someone that knows how to play call. Now, were you done as far as the positions and the roster and what we've got?
Yeah, let's dive into the upcoming season.
Are you sure? Because you didn't talk about the kickers or the punters.
Right.
Those are important.
That was by design that I did not talk about the kickers. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, how often remains to be seen. I think we'll get into that when we go through the actual schedule as to how many times your place kicker might be used. I don't see a lot of opportunities for the punter this year, maybe in practice.
Yeah.
But, I think, to your point, I think this offense has got a lot of depth, a lot of talent, a lot of strength that I don't know how often they're going to call that dude's number. Just so we can bring light. I'm sure his mother will be excited. His father will beam with pride when we do this. Your number one punter is Brett Thorson. Might be the only time you hear his name used in a media context this entire season. But number 92 on your program's number one in his parents' hearts, Brett Thorson is punting for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh, Brett.
Legends.
All right, so let's talk about their season. We open up, and I thought we were going to open up with a Clemson too, like we did last year, but I was wrong. We open up with Marshall.
I thought you were going to say Tennessee.
Oh, we are Marshall. And that's as a shout out to Old Debbie Marshall. And then of course Austin P. We won't get into those games. All right, our first SEC game, conference game, is in Knoxville. Look, and we haven't got into the forecast show for Tennessee, but guys, if y'all were listening, I don't know, a month ago, you did listen to our recap show of Tennessee. And if you are any fans of college football, you know the dumpster fire that is called Tennessee right now. I don't see that game being an issue for Georgia at all. I do not. And I know it's Knoxville. And I was talking to someone on the road this last week, and they were brought up Tennessee, and they were like, that is the most hostile environment. Actually, I was talking to Tom, my buddy Tom. He's an Ohio State fan, on the phone, and he was talking about Tennessee, and they're the most hostile environment you can be in Knoxville. So I know that's bad. Ask Lane Kiffin. He's had a golf ball thrown at him. But I think Georgia's does fine there.
Yeah, I look at this a little bit differently. You have a practice on August 30th. You have another one scheduled for September 6th. And then your first game is in Knoxville on the 13th. Once again, those that do the scheduling at Georgia You did a lovely job.
Yeah.
Because you really found some teams that needed a paycheck so that you can pad your win-loss record. Go you.
Yeah. I actually
South Carolina does it too.
I don't know what you're talking about.
South Carolina does that too. Stop it.
we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. But let's look how that plays out because, like you said, Marshall, you got 2 warm-up games. And then I think you've got – I'm not going to call it a warm-up game against Tennessee by any means. So Tennessee fans, don't believe me when I say it's a warm-up game. You guys have a lot of talent, and I think you have a great coach there. Josh Heupel is a great coach. And I think he's going to do great things in that program. It's unfortunate what happened. But we get that harder game with the SEC, with Knoxville. If we are able to pull out a win there, which I think we will, I think it's a perfect work to with the next game, which is we got to take on Alabama, the Crimson Tide, in the motherland of Athens, Georgia. Now, I think, look, Alabama's Alabama, and Georgia does not do well against Alabama historically, unless we're playing in the playoffs. But I think Georgia wins that game at Alabama against Alabama as well. I do.
Okay, that'll be a fun one to watch.
Mm-hmm.
This is a proving season. We've gone back and forth about how we think that DeBoer is going to do at Alabama. What's the future look like for the Crimson Tide? This will be one of those defining games that really helps point that weather vane in the way it's going to go.
I think so too. With it being that early in the season, it could shape out some stuff. We talked about that last week about that game against Texas and Ohio State. How does that affect the rest of the season? This could have pretty good implications on the rest of the Georgia season or Alabama season, depending on the results of that game. The next game, we go to Lexington, Kentucky, and take on the Wildcats. I mean,
They're coming to us. They're coming to us.
Oh, excuse me. That's right. They're coming to us. I apologize. They're coming to us. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much more to talk about that.
Not unless they're going to challenge you to a basketball game.
Yeah, they'll beat us in there. That's for sure.
Then we will lose.
Yeah. And then we travel to Auburn, Alabama. We do have to go to Alabama once this year, but it's in the lower Alabama. And take on the War Eagles, Tigers, the Hugh Freezes. I don't know who they are anymore.
Neither do they.
And I mean, we've had Auburn's number for a long time. Now, I will say this: I think Auburn had a pretty shaky year last year. When we recapped their season, we really dived into each one of their games and saw that, they weren't that far off. I do believe Auburn's going to have a better season this year. They've got a better they got that good quarterback from Oklahoma, Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be different.
I think that this is a trap game, or can be a trap game for Georgia.
I think so too.
Let's just play a quick little game. Let's assume that you handle Alabama when they come to Athens. In all likelihood, you're beating Kentucky without trying all that hard. And then you go to the Plains to play Auburn. But if you look, the following week, you got to go face your boy, Lane Kiffin. And that game's at home. You've got to make sure that your team is focused on Auburn and not Ole Miss when you go to the Plains.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That could definitely be a trap game. And going into the Ole Miss game, you're right. We do play Ole Miss after that in Athens. And it's going to be interesting to see what Ole Miss is going to be like. And we'll talk about their forecast show in a few weeks. But Ole Miss, they lost a lot of people last year to the NFL, and a lot. But is there anyone better than my guy, Lane Kiffin? when it comes to
How you doing?
when it comes to picking up the people from the transfer portal? I say no. I say he's one of the best. So it'll be interesting to see. After that, we have to go to that goofy game in Jacksonville. I don't know if I like it, if I hate it. I have mixed emotions about that game. But we have to take on the Florida Gators and the Fighting Flobies. That could be an interesting game. I think Florida's season this year is going to be better than last year. I do believe that. I think DJ Lagway is gonna have a decent season. I don't think it's going to be as good as Carolina, because that seems to be the comparison these days: DJ Lagway versus Lenore Sellers. But I think that's not a. I don't think that's a give me game this year.
I don't think it's a gimme game either, and I'm glad that you brought in the Lagway versus Sellers commentary that's out there right now, because that brings us to our chicken scratch moment, brought to you by OTC Kennels. OTC Kennels on Facebook and Instagram. Check these guys out. When you look at Florida coming into this year and you look at this game played on November the 1st against the Georgia Bulldogs, Lagway could be off to a great start. He could be having a solid year. We both believe that the Gators are going to be a much improved team this year over 2024. But this could also be the game. My question is, where the Georgia Bulldogs dismantle any and all hopes for Lagway to not only be a Heisman contender this season, but ever mentioned in that conversation again. We went over the depth chart and we looked at the movement that took place on defense and the things that were done to embolden this Bulldog defense. Does it present that type of opportunity to not only win the game against the Florida Gators, but make Lagway wish that he had played a different sport?
I'm going to do something that is very out of character for me. I'm going to answer your question.
Ooh.
Ready?
Class, write this down. It might be on a test.
Yes. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
So it's a one-word answer from the dog. Yes.
There you go.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I really think that there's a lot of probability in what you just said. If Lagway is having a great year, Georgia could just say, "Hold my beer. I'll put a stop to that."
We are assuming Lagway still has a shoulder by week 10. Like,
that's true.
You got to stay healthy for us to start any Heisman conversations.
That's true. He's already in the mix. They're already putting him out there as somebody to watch, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. And let me also be clear. We have not dived into South Carolina's upcoming year yet, so I'm going to speak vaguely. But I am glad. Last year, I wished that Georgia had been on our schedule, because that would have been a cool year for us. Would have been a great game, I think, between the two schools. This year, I'm glad that they're not, because there is hype around Lenore's. And I would hate for Georgia to have an opportunity, early or not, to dismantle that hype. I think Georgia is coming into this season looking at unfinished business from last year. So in my mind, you don't want to be any of these teams that Georgia's going to go up against, because they got work to do. But Lagway's got to play them, and we don't. So that's where that moment comes from.
Yeah, I agree. Our next game after that is we got to go to Mississippi State. We all know what that team looks like right now. It's unfortunate. They are they've got a lot of work to do. We don't normally pull for. I mean, I must say we do pull for other SEC school. We're going to pull for SEC teams over any other conference. That's for sure. But our heart kind of goes out to this program. They've been hit hard, and so I hope they have a better season.
It's not enough for them to win the MAC. They want to win some games in the SEC.
That's right. And then we got to take on Texas again in Athens. Now, I know a lot of people are going to go, yeah, but, Georgia's got to play those 3 hard teams all in Athens. And you're right. But we had to, so my response to that is shut up. We had to do that last year. We had to play Ole Miss, Texas, and Alabama all on the road last year. So, yes, we get to have it a little bit easier this year. So, if you don't like it, again, shut up. Know what you're talking about. Yes, but we take on Texas at home in Athens. I honestly think that game, that's going to be a very big game for Arch Manning, especially with it being late in the season. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, my gut tells me that Georgia's going to win that game because it is in Athens. However, if in fact Texas is playing good lights out football, and we talked about their roster last week and how loaded they are on both sides of that ball. Do they come in with a chip on their shoulder? Remember, Georgia beat them twice last year. Do they come in with a chip on their shoulder? I say yes. I think that is one heck of a ball game.
The other thing that you've got to pay attention to with that game is how late in the season it's played.
Yes.
And so we've talked about, one of the things we talked about last week with Texas was the chemistry, right? And the chemistry that the O-line is going to have developed, the chemistry that Arch is going to have developed with his receivers. Now, they're working on that in the offseason, don't you fret. But by the time you've worked your way down into the November portion of your schedule, you got all the chemistry that you're going to have that particular season. The other side of that question is the quarterback that Georgia has in Gunner Stockton. What's his health like at this point in the season? How many chances has he taken, win or lose, with his body to get that extra inch, to get across the goal line? What shape is he in? And if he's not, is Ryan Puglisi in a good spot to assume that role and beat a Texas? Certainly he's going to be good enough to assume the QB1 role at Georgia if needed. But is he going to be good enough to take that job and beat Texas?
Yeah, I think you made a couple really, really, really good points.
I'm known for that.
That's right.
Class, you should always be taking notes.
So if you look at the Gunner Stockton that came in the SEC championship and you saw him take that lick, right? I think that is going to be, I hope it's not, but I think that's going to be typical Gunner Stockton playing this season. I do. I think that them boys are going to play like that. And I'm wondering, can they pull him back from that? Or if they don't, like you said, how is that going to, is he going to be beat up by this game? I don't know. But you got to say that's the same thing with Arch Manning. Arch Manning is that I'm going to run the football if I don't have anyone either. How does that play in there? I think that could be very interesting. So that game will be will be fun to watch for sure. Then we have Charlotte, and then we close out with Georgia Tech. I hope that the Georgia Tech game this year, even though it is at Tech, or it's at home, I hope it's not an 8 overtime game again, because I don't know if my heart can take that. But all in all, we've recapped Georgia. We did a forecast on Georgia. We forecasted Texas. Both of those teams, in my opinion, have a legitimate shot at least making the playoffs, if not win it at all. I do.
I agree with that. I think that you're going to continue to see teams like Texas, teams like Georgia. For my money, I think Alabama. You're going to see teams like that continue to make those progressions. The cream rises to the top, right? You're going to see that again this year with these schools. The beauty of the SEC, however, is that you will also see continued growth from Ole Miss. You will see continued growth, I believe, from South Carolina. You will see continued growth from Florida. I think you're going to see some stunted growth from Tennessee this next season. A lot of questions to answer, but as you mentioned, Josh Heupel, great head coach. But we're going to see that continued movement forward for all of these teams.
Yeah, I think so as well. Look, man, all in all, Georgia's got a loaded roster. Georgia's got a pretty tough schedule. You're playing some really tough teams this year, and it's going to be a very, just like last year, it's going to be a very fun season to watch for the Georgia Bulldogs.
That's right.
So I mean, I think somebody came out the other day and made a comment, and it was Sark. Sark came out and he says, "I think the days of an SEC team going undefeated are over." And I'm gonna have to agree with them on that. I think it's going to be very, very hard for Georgia to go 12-0 with this season. I just think it's too tough for sure. Look, I've got nothing else. I know we all. I know we can. I could go on and on and on about this Georgia team, but at that point, it'll probably just be rambling. But
well, the only other thing that I would think to say right now, and this is a crucial time, this that we're in right now, May 29th, is a crucial time of year for the University of Georgia. You mentioned running back university, tight end university. Might I also submit misdemeanor you? You have got to stay out of trouble, because the things you do now is what you will potentially be penalized for in weeks 1 through 4 later. So, guys, stay on the right track. Give yourself the opportunity to have a great year.
Look, man, call B-Dawg if you are feeling the urge to speed. He will speed. He will let you get in your car. He will drive your car, and he will even speed for you, so you get that adrenaline.
Do you think that he would do that?
For the love of Georgia football?
Maybe like 16 and a 15, maybe.
Yeah, probably so. Maybe. I don't know. He's maybe we'll have to ask him on the next show.
Yeah.
But so anyway, guys, I would agree. Stay out of trouble. Stay out of Clark County Jail. We need you. Everybody counts. And good luck.
There you go.
All right, guys. So, hey, thank y'all for listening. Keep the comments coming. Like us, share us. For the love of God, follow us and subscribe to us. That is how this show is going to keep growing and keep getting bigger. And we're moving in the right direction. There's a lot of awesome, cool things happening with Chicken and the Dawg. Other than just the Chicken and the Dawg. I mean, that's good in itself. But I don't have anything else. Do you?
I'm all crowed out.
All right, guys. Love you. Deuces.
Bang.